We begin with the fallout from yesterday's jury decision, finding former President Donald Trump guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in his hush money criminal trial.
It is just the latest in the increasing number of unknowns heading into this presidential election year. Capitol reporter Forrest Saunders joining us live tonight from Tallahassee on how this will all play out here in Florida. Forrest?
Yeah, Paul, it was a little over a year ago. I was at the state capitol behind me waiting for the beginning of session. We were actually just standing in the fourth floor chamber. Everybody was talking about this when this indictment came down. They were discussing what it meant politically. And I got to tell you, Republicans, Democrats, both divided on what it meant. And not much has changed more than a year later.
Trump rolled Friday full of fire, condemning the former president's 34 guilty verdicts and labeling his hush money trial a political sham. Those comments echoed up and down Florida by Republicans in Congress, the governor, and State Attorney General Ashley Moody offering this.
Many of us couldn't believe that it happened in this country. That said, there is a reason that we have appellate structures.
Florida GOP Chair Evan Powers saw the moment as an opportunity for party unity and predicted Trump's conviction would lead to his reelection.
I think it's fired up our base of supporters. They see an injustice being done, the weaponization of our justice system. I think our voters are ready to turn out and reelect President Trump.
But what about that vital middle ground of moderates and independents? Siena polling from last fall suggested a conviction would mean a 7-point bump for President Joe Biden in swing states, and a May Marquette poll found a guilty verdict gave Biden a 4-point win nationally. Even so, political experts say there are plenty of other polls to consider.
Poll after poll after poll after poll shows that at the top of the list of the public's concern are Democrats and Republicans and undecideds and young and old is still economics.
Dr. Susan McManus cautions there is plenty of time for big issues to come and go, and that inflation continues to loom large. That says Democrats seem split on how to handle the verdict. State Party Chair Nikki Fried not shying away.
And it is going to be important for Democrats to make sure that that line in the sand is drawn to show that contrast, that you've got somebody who every single day is fighting for himself.
That's as others like State Representative Anna Eskamani felt Trump would ultimately reap the benefits if cheering conviction got too loud.
I feel like we're already seeing it be galvanized for the right. Despite the fact of his felony conviction, I think he will actually be able to leverage this to appeal more to his base, which is really unsettling and says a lot about just the state of American politics.
Meanwhile, both campaigns fundraising from the conviction, Trump's team in particular touting a near $35 million haul from small dollar donors, their biggest one-day total through their online donor platform.
So what's the next step here? Well, I can tell you it's probably going to be more polling. We're going to have to wait and see what voters think about all of these convictions. And we're probably going to have to wait a couple of days to get some of that information. But of course, we're not really going to know who's going to win this thing until November. At least that's what we think, Paul.
Yeah, Forrest, when you talk about the national polls, they'll likely tell at least one story. But here in Florida, things could be different. How does this all play out with turnout, especially considering the huge gap that Republicans have when it comes to registered voters in the Sunshine State? They have a huge advantage.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, you've got almost 1 million more registered Republicans than Democrats, and Democrats say they're making ground on that, and they expect that they're going to have good turnout. One of the things that continues to give hope to Democrats is that you've got a couple of progressive issues on the ballot. You've got abortion protections as well as recreational marijuana. Is that going to be enough? And what's going to happen with these convictions? Is that going to motivate Republicans to turn out in larger numbers? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. I wish I had a crystal ball because, frankly, I'd probably be more of a betting man.
Right. Well, ironically, one of those voters is actually former President Donald Trump himself. His residency, of course, here in Florida, down in Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach. Now, I understand you spoke with the state CFO, Jimmy Patronis, today about apparently he has an effort to give Trump clemency so he can vote this year because the state law says convicted felons can't vote, and Donald Trump is now a convicted felon.
Yeah, and there's a big gray zone there because, of course, this is a conviction in New York, and whether or not Trump appeals sounds like he's going to, and where that appeal process will be when November rolls around. I mean, there's just a lot of questions, and Patronis isn't sure that this needs to happen, but He wants to do something. He's a part of that executive clemency board, and they do have a June 12th meeting coming up. He is urging the other members, which are all Republicans, they include the Ashley Moody, the AG, Wilton Simpson, the Ag Commissioner, as well as Governor Ron DeSantis. He's asking them to do something. We just don't know what that will look like and whether or not it'll actually happen, or if it's needed, but it's definitely something to watch in these next 2 weeks when we get closer to that meeting.
All right, a couple of storylines to follow up on for us. Thank you, sir, as always. Appreciate it.